Good morning. I'm Stuart White. I'd like to welcome you to our Guide to Rapid Return to Service Systems. Now, this is the fourth in Fosroc's series of online training webinars, and it'll be presented by my colleagues Tim Mole and Ian Reynolds. Before I hand you over to Tim and Ian, I'd like to explain a few things about our webinars to any of you who might be new to them. I'll start with a tour of the screen. To the left of the main slide screen, you'll see the Q&A box. You can ask any questions that you have during the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer them this morning, but if not, we'll get back to you by email later. If there are any recurring questions, we'll answer those at the end of the presentation in a live session. Beneath the Q&A window, there are some call to action buttons. One of these will link you directly to our website, fosroc.com. The others will take you directly through to our other webinars, which are on waterproofing, concrete repair, and resin floors. Now, if you look to the right of the main screen, you'll see that there's a short survey. Now, we'd really appreciate it if you could take a few moments to fill this in, as it'll help us make our future webinar activity as relevant as possible to you. And then beneath the survey, there's a resource list. Now, in addition to today's slides, you'll see that it contains brochures and other material relating to the presentation. Now, one thing about our Fosroc webinars, they're all available to view on demand after the day, and today's presentation will be no different. And in fact, we're a chartered institution of highways and transportation knowledge partner, so you could see this webinar repurposed at a later date on their website. So now that's the preliminaries over, I would just now like to hand you over to Tim.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Well, I'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from today or in the future via the on-demand button as well. A warm welcome to you all. So before we begin with the webinar today, I just wanted to introduce the two people that will be taking you through about 45 minutes we plan to run the webinar for, with a kind of a 10-15 minute window at the end of the presentation for some questions and answers as well. So firstly, myself, I'm Tim Mole, started in the construction industry in 1997, working out of Milton Keynes for a company called Llewellyn Stone Care, and from there moved across into distribution, working with W.T. Burdens before moving one step further across to a company called Buildbase, part of the Wolseley Group, where I helped set up their construction accessories division. And then in 2004, I joined Fosroc as an area sales manager covering the Midlands. And then since then, I've had a number of roles within the business, leading to my current role here as general sales manager for the UK and Ireland. And with that, I'd like to introduce, by the wonders of technology, Ian Reynolds.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, just a brief description, my biography. So I came into the construction industry about 10 years after Tim, actually. Started off with Tika UK, where I worked in the flooring and refurbishment sector there, before moving on to MAPE in 2014, where I headed the concrete repair side of the business up in Scotland and the northeast of England. Moved to Fosroc in 2016, again doing concrete repair as a spec manager, again in Scotland and the northeast. And in 2018, late 2018, moved into the role as Northern Regional Manager. So that's covering Scotland, north of England, and all of Ireland. So I'll hand you back to Tim.
Thanks, Ian. As you can probably tell by our biography pictures there, we've both been in the construction industry a long time. There's about 6 hairs on our heads between us. Although I would point out that one of us is significantly older than the other, hence the black and white picture. Anyway, moving on. The webinar was actually developed before COVID-19, although a lot of what you'll see today is quite relevant. Whilst this is our first live webinar as such, we kind of come together with a few ideas in February time about how we could put across a demonstration of products, but crucially with a very critical message of completing projects safely, offering specialist support and training, and crucially, I suppose especially pertinent in the current day, assisting in getting projects back on track following any delays, downturn or client requests to speed up. As Stuart touched on the opening slide there, I actually recorded a speech for the Chartered Institute of Highways and Transport, which is actually on your page that you see in front of you now, just covering our current situation regards Fosroc and COVID in particular. So just looking at Fosroc in general, well, we're a global business. However, because being a global business can often come with being a big company, perhaps an inflexible one, Fosroc does have a bit of a bespoke touch on both products and support. And one of the things certainly in the UK we pride ourselves on is having the ability to go from one lift pit or 2 or 3 tower blocks right through to key infrastructure schemes that we're involved in currently, like HS2 or Thames Tideway, for example. So we have a comprehensive range of products, the network, as I've mentioned, and the skill set, I'd like to think, to be able to hold every hand through different scenarios and different project sizes. Why Fosroc? Well, when we look at the products, we have an extensive range. There is a number of product ranges that Fosroc cover here in the UK and globally, and we'll look at some of those shortly. But crucially, it's about putting all of that into one bespoke package. We do a whole tower block from basement through to top level, through a range of sealants and concrete repairs and coatings and the like, and we'll touch on some of that shortly. With regards to the quality side, well, Fosroc operate a strict standards quality, ensuring the customers receive the right level of performance. But not just that, you'll be pleased to know that a number of health and safety, a number of ISO accreditations are also held by Fosroc and the standards that you'd expect from a company of our standing. With regards to technology, the construction chemicals market is very much an arms race many times. You'll be constantly looking for your next product, your next idea, your next development, and as such, Fosroc invest a significant amount of money within these cells around the globe to ensure that we are at the forefront of those new products to deliver to the market. With regards to the know-how, well, this would be something I'd be very proud of within the UK, especially that as well as our guys and girls would be on site in their boots and in their glasses and gloves, actually showing you how to mix and use products, we're as happy as we are today performing in front of 300 people on a webinar going through the technical side of our offer. So it's a good cross-section. With regards to the products, well, a lot of the brand names will come before a lot of these names you see on the screen. Yes, we do grouts. Yes, we do industrial flooring, sealants, concrete repair, waterproofing, and the like. But it's actually the level of brand names that will be more familiar to some of you, I would guess. Renderoc will always be synonymous with concrete repair, the Fireflex with sealants, Proofex waterproofing, the Auracast, which would be our admixtures, Nitrodec, our flooring, Nitroseal, the sealants, and DeckGuard, our protective coatings and strengthening. So we have a range of product solutions, and some of those products, including the concrete repair and the joint sealants and the flooring, you're going to see in a little bit more detail today. So one element we're very proud of in the UK is the specification hub, and it certainly takes on a little bit more importance in the current climate. The Spec Hub team is actually a sort of a cross-sell partnership between our technical and commercial teams. Again, I mentioned earlier about the bespoke way in which the team work, and we're very proud that within Fosroc we don't do a copy and paste on a specification. We rarely send out standard details. We will look at every project on its merit, regardless of size, and ensure that the specification document carries all the vital information, as well as warranties and therefore peace of mind for the client and the contractor base. So moving on to our main subject for the day, and yes, I won't lie, there are some product promotions as such within the next few slides, but what we're actually promoting here is more than bags and bottles and rolls of material. It's actually time savings, it's efficiency, and it's program improvements. So on that note, I will hand over to Ian, who's just going to give you a run through of the key areas that we're going to look at in today's session.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, so moving on to rapid return to service. So today in the webinar, we're going to be covering off 4 different products. Now, we've intentionally chosen different products that cover a fair range of application types. So first of all, we're going to be looking at ultra-fast curing sealants, so high movement sealants. So these are products that are really going to get things moving, and it's really that essence, that minimal time that you require for the curing phase that really brings these into rapid return to service. We'll also look at some resin flow systems. So we're going to be looking at a PMMA system called Untitled FS. And again, this really kind of follows the same idea that the curing phase is so short, it just allows so much more efficiency when you're actually putting the product down. We'll look at a concrete repair side of things. So this is going to be deck repairs, and we're going to be looking at a product called Fosroc 250, which was developed for the highway sector, really, but it's got a lot of other uses out with that. And again, some of the case studies will look at the other uses that they've used outside highways. And also, staying on concrete repair, we're going to be looking at a rapid setting spray applied mortar as well, a product called Renderock DSR. The first one we're going to look at here is Untitled FS system. So for those of you who don't know much about resin floor systems as such, I'll give you a brief overview. Untitled FS is a PMMA, so that's a polymethyl methacrylate. Now, MMAs have been on the market for a little while. MMAs are a bit like epoxies in the sense that they are fairly rigid when they cure. So anyone that knows epoxies will appreciate that they are rigid, they are very abrasion resistant, but they're not particularly good when it comes to movement. Anyone that knows polyurethanes will appreciate that they're a little bit softer, they tend to be a wee bit more flexible. PMMAs really uses both of those kind of technologies, if you like, and marries them together. So you end up with something that's very abrasion resistant, but it also has a bit of elasticity, a bit of flexibility in it as well. That's critical when you're dealing, especially when you're dealing with new structures where there might be a bit of shrinkage cracking that's going on, or even in refurbishment projects where there might be historic cracking on the structure itself. Now, the one beauty of using PMMA systems is you have a bit of control over the cure time. Again, if you're using polyurethanes or if you're using epoxies, you tend to get, two-part product. You'll have part A, part B. You marry the two of them together. They are set capacities. They are set amounts that you're adding one to the other, and you then get on with it. The difference with a PMMA system is you have your resin and you have your catalyst, your hardener, in the form of a powder. And you can add as much as you want, really. So you can play about with the actual cure time that you're dealing with. So if you're working in the northern parts of Scotland and the temperature is 0 degrees, you can tweak it. You can add a wee bit more of that hardener, anywhere between 2% and 6% by weight of the resin, in order to try and speed up the cure. And that's something that's really critical in the success of a PMMA system like this. And again, it's one of these features that really makes it a brilliant product to include in a rapid return to service. Now, as far as PMMA itself, PMMA is almost like a liquefied version of Perspex. I mean, a lot of people have heard of Perspex or plexiglass as it's referred to in the States. So it's that same kind of technology, just to give you a bit of an idea as to what it's like. Okay, I'll appreciate that some of these images here are a bit small, but we'll begin onto these different systems in a bit more detail. But essentially, we've designed 4 different systems within Untitled FS just to make it a little bit easier to specify. So I'll be running through these systems just now. So system 1 is a fairly basic system. It's a primer and then 2 top coats. So again, this would take the place of a situation where you're potentially using a 2-layer epoxy or a 2-layer polyurethane system. So it's ideal for internal spaces that are maybe getting a bit of light foot traffic or line demarcation, that type of thing, is a system that you would use in this kind of scenario. Also ideal for using it outside as well. The UVR top coat that comes with it, as the name suggests, is completely UV resistant. So you could use it in a scenario where there is maybe an essence of waterproofing about it, but you're not actually having to waterproof habitable space. So you can see in the bottom left-hand image there, it's a cantilevered balcony. You don't need an outright waterproofing system there because ultimately the space underneath it is open to the elements anyway. So that's Untitled FS System 1, primer and then 2 top coats. The two top coats allow you to actually put down a broadcast of aggregate between the top coats. So that gives you a bit of slip resistance on that side of things. Okay, moving on to System 2 now. So System 2 is the same idea. So you're using the primer and you've got a top coat. Main difference here is you've got a membrane in the middle. But the beauty of this membrane is that it's actually a slightly softer material. It's slightly more elastic. So it's perfect for situations where you're actually having to put a waterproofing component in here. The important thing to say is that every single layer of an Nitodec FS system is PMMA. It's all exactly the same technology. So every layer has the capability to cure away down to maybe 15, 20 minutes, that kind of speed if you need it. But you can, you can prolong that cure time if the conditions do suit it. So that's System 2, a primer, a membrane, and then a top coat. And in this case, the anti-slip grains would actually be broadcast into the membrane itself with the top coat going over the surface. System 3 is a bit of an upgrade on this further still. So the main difference with System 3, very like System 2, but the main difference, and you can see in the bottom right-hand image there is a reinforcement fleece which can be rolled out, and it gets embedded between the two layers of membrane. The situations where you'd maybe use this is, again, in waterproofing circumstances, but in a situation where there's a bit more risk. So again, if you've got a habitable space, maybe it's a balcony with habitable space underneath it, you want to go for something that's maybe a bit more belt and braces. So again, it's got that waterproof layer, but it's got the reinforcement in it, which still allows for movement, but it means that you've got a wee bit more strength there if there is any more movement than originally anticipated. Moving on to System 4, so that is the kind of a Rolls Royce of systems. The only scenario I would really use this is situations where there is going to be very heavy traffic on it, be it foot traffic or even be it vehicle traffic as well. So again, this system could be used in car park scenarios, on ramps, that turning circles, that type of thing. So again, it uses everything you've got in System 3, but the main thing is you've got this wear coat layer. So the wear coat layer sits underneath the top coat, but it protects the membrane that's lying underneath it. So that's System 4, and as I say, that's a really, really heavy traffic situation where you'd be using System 4. Moving on to the detailing. So we have in-house CAD draftsmen, and we can put together specific details for projects, which we can link into the specifications that we're writing. But we do have a lot of off-the-shelf details that we can give you. Some of the details that we might include that are bespoke are for things like podium decks, so structures that are maybe not open to the elements, they're not open to foot traffic and abrasion resistance. And again, it's a situation where you would adopt a specific system for it. So System 2 that you can see here, that's exactly the type of system that we'd be using on a podium deck itself. So just to summarise about the key benefits, Nitodec FS, it's a system that you can use all year round. You can use this below 0 degrees. If you think of the capabilities of an epoxy resin, for example, or a PU, you can't really use these systems under kind of a 6, 7 degrees temperatures. So you can rely on having very, very fast cure times, even down to these very low temperatures. We offer an approved contractor scheme as well, so that's something that we will come on to a wee bit later. But that's a process we have actually sat down and we have trained specific contractors to make sure that they are au fait with the ways of using Nitodec FS. Okay, the last slide on Nitodec FS is really, in layman's terms, where is it actually going to be showing efficiencies for you? So what we've got here is two different graphs. We've got the top graph really showing a standard PU or a standard epoxy coating and what the kind of make up the timeline would be for that. And we're referencing it against what it would be for Nitodec FS, again with a two-coat system. The critical thing here is really the curing time. If you look at the bottom graph there, the curing time is minimal. I mean, we've been quite generous here. We're given 2 hours for curing. You wouldn't even really need 2 hours for that system to cure if you use the maximum amount of hardener that you needed. But if you reflect that against the one above it, the curing time is so long, the application time, you're maybe only getting about 200 square meters for a 2-person team within a period of a day, whereas that is elongated massively to 5 times that for Nitodec FS. So yeah, some big time savings to be made. Okay, I'm going to hand you back over to Tim, who's going to talk us through the benefits of Fosroc 250.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for that. So yeah, just going to take you through a brief overview of Fosroc 250, just to give you a little bit of history about the product. Well, Fosroc 250 is a sister product of Fosroc GP, a product that's been around for a number of years. The development of the product came on the back of a conversation we had with Kias and Highways England, actually. And in that meeting, we posed a sort of a question based on their biggest concerns, what they had when they were using materials, and what their concerns were on projects. And one of the key elements that came out of it was that the return to service really was something that was of concern. Products are fine, but if we have to wait a number of days or hours for products to set and to go off, then it's downtime that we can ill afford to have. So on the back of that conversation, I should say, we discussed within Tamworth and within the technical team the idea, the development of a new product that would be able to cover a number of factors. And as I mentioned, when rapid return to service on those products is so important, it's absolutely pivotal that we can get a product that covers a number of requirements for the industry. So, for example, HAPAS approval was key. The need for the mortar to be fast setting, but also to be placed at 250mm in depth, this often being the thickness of a pour slab. And as mentioned, fast strength cure and low moisture. And the low moisture element of it is incredibly important, because ultimately it's that element of importance that can open the roads up a lot quicker. So, for example, the current regulation or the current standard in the industry would be that concrete would go in, moisture content would need to be less than 6% before we can apply our waterproof coatings, and that tends to take 4 to 5 days. In the instance of Fosroc 250, what you've actually got is a product that gets down to that less than 6% moisture content in a few hours. And therefore you could, in principle, have the situation that a repair is done first thing in the morning, and by the afternoon, a waterproof coating is sprayed over the top in readiness for the asphalt. So we've all been past those sort of roadwork scenarios where this process tends to take a long time. In the case of Fosroc 250, it can be done fairly simply and within a number of hours rather than days. Just looking at the successes we've had with the product, it's quite ironic that we launch a product for the highways industry and then find it used in various other scenarios. But certainly in the case of Fosroc 250, you can see the picture there in the top. The top of the screen is actually a demonstration that we gave of the product that Carl Lewis and Martin did for us at the Albury Viaduct Midland Link scheme. But aside from that, it can be used in nuclear power plants, warehousing and production, various levels of transport infrastructure. And a good example of that is a case study that Ian will cover off shortly. But you can see the bottom two pictures there of a railway platform bridge, a railway platform station that was completed overnight. And furthermore, airports and hard standings, anywhere where there is a need to open a structure up quickly, let alone whether it's having a coating on or not, is ideal for something like the Fosroc 250. Okay, so keep it in tune with Ian's slide on the efficiency timeline. Let's have a look at how that actually looks in reality. So based on a 2-person team at 250mm deep, you can see a standard R4 repair mortar, and we'd happily include our own into here, so we're not looking to knock competitors. A lot of our own R4s would fall into this bracket. A couple of hours to set up and prepare, 6 hours square metre at about that 250mm deep depth as we talk, and then upwards of 8 hours worth of curing to enable enough strength within that concrete to be sufficient. However, if we look at the table below, you can clearly see that yes, we have our 2 hours preparation, but we're able to apply 24 square metres at 250 mil deep with a curing period of just 2 hours. So the efficiency timeline there is a huge amount of improvement on top of what would be a traditional repair. Okay, so moving on to our next item, keeping in tune with our concrete repair theme, I'm going to hand back over to Ian now, who will take you through the Fosroc DSR. Ian.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, before we move on to the product itself, just a bit of an overview as to spray applied mortars in case it's unfamiliar territory for anyone. Spray applied mortars could really be wet or dry in the way that they're placed. In essence, any hand placed mortar which is mixed with water can be wet sprayed. The clue's in the name. It's mixed with water. It's mixed with water within your machine. It travels through the hose and it is sprayed in a wet form. The difference with a dry spray is that when you're mixing it, you're tumbling that dry powder. You are powering that dry powder out the hose and it remains completely dry and free of water until it leaves the nozzle. It's when it leaves the nozzle, and you can kind of see in the image, the diagram in the bottom right hand corner there. This is the point where it actually you introduce the water. The beauty of that is because there is no wet substance within your pipework or within your machinery, there is nothing to cure in there. So if you've got works in very hard to reach areas, maybe it's a seawall or underneath a bridge or within the underground system, that type of thing, you can spend as long as you want getting into position and getting everything prepared, and then literally turn on the machinery and you can start your work. So that is the key difference with this type of dry spray application. But to give you a bit of an idea as to the difference between it hand applied and when it comes to spray mortars and the kind of efficiencies that you can make with them. If you look at the thumbnail in the bottom left hand side there, that's an area that's maybe so high, 1.5 meters in length. To do that, a 2-person team doing that by hand would probably be there for a couple of days, to be honest. The difference with a 2-person team doing this with a dry spray or even with a wet spray, you could do that in about an hour. And that's a massive difference in the time it takes to reinstate that amount of that amount of concrete. So we have 2 products. We've got Fosroc DS, which is our standard setting, and we've also got the DSR, which is the rapid setting version of it. Now, we've tweaked these products very slightly over the last few years, and some of the good news that came from the amendments that we've made to the products is down to the things like minimal dust during application. So this is something that's good for the user, the person that's actually going to be applying the product, but it's also the rebound. The rebound is critical when it comes to especially to dry spray applications. The rebound is literally the amount of material that does not stick to the substrate. You're not going to get 100% of your material that's actually going to take to the substrate. Now, we found that the rebound levels, when we had an expert applicator using the DS and the DSR on their trials, found that the rebound levels were about 2 or 3%. Now, if you reflect that against some of the kind of Street Fighter versions by some of our competitors, where they're maybe getting figures of about 35 and 40% rebound, that's a massive difference. And when you look at the difference in price, okay, you're maybe looking at something that's maybe a few pence cheaper to get a Street Fighter version. It's blown into smithereens when you look at the amount of rebound that people are actually suffering. Okay, so next slide. We're going to be looking at better adhesion and how it affects time wasted. So you can see in this graph here that when you're looking at the amount of time it takes to reinstate, if you are suffering big problems with rebound, if you're getting 35–40% of your product that is literally pinging back at you, that is a big waste of time. You're not making as much progress with your concrete reinstatement. But as you can see in the grey areas that are shown in the graph here, you've got a lot more time for cleanup. And that product that has been pinged back at you, you can't put that back in your system. You can't reuse it. You're running a dry system through your pumps. You can't put wet water back into your pumps. So that literally has to be tipped has to go to landfill. And it's not good for the environment at all, but it's certainly not good for your efficiency side of things. Okay, the next slide we're going to be looking at is looking at the physical amount of product that is wasted when you're doing these schemes and you're suffering so much from huge amounts of rebound. So you can see here that if we're working off a figure of perhaps, let's say even 5% rebound, a massive difference in the amount of product that is actually going to be having to be cleaned up, and that has a massive effect on the efficiency of the project itself. Now, if we look at some of the information from the data sheets regarding RenderOp DS and RenderOp DSR, so bearing in mind that DSR is the rapid setting version of it, with rapid setting cementitious materials, repair mortars, the fact that you get such good early strength, it usually comes at the detriment of the final strength, if you like. That's not the case with RenderOp DSR. You can see from the figures here that the 28 days figure for compressive strength is up at 60 megapascals, or 60 newtons. And that's exactly the same figure that you've got for RenderOp DS. So it's good news on the final strength of it, but it's really that early strength side of things that pushes DSR into the category of being perfect for rapid return to service. Again, if we look at the efficiency timeline for the use of RenderOp DSR, what we've done here is we've compared it against a hand-applied R4 mortar. So it's, there's a couple of things at play here. One, you've got the curing times that are massively reduced, again, with the use of RenderOp DSR. But you've also got the benefits of using a spray-applied system. And the difference is, it's really, really apparent here. We've taken a 12-hour window for getting work done. So you've got the same amount of time for setup and prep. But it's when you take into the account that the fact that the reinstatement is so much greater with a spray-applied material, and the curing time is minimised as well, the difference is massive. So you've got about 5 square metres that you'd be capable of reinstating at about 100 mil deep with a 2-person team, against 60 square metres if you were doing it with a rapid setting dry spray. So the effects are quite noticeable on this side of things. Okay, I'm going to hand you back to Tim, and Tim is going to go through the next product, which is Thiaflex 555. On to you, Tim.
Okay, yep, thanks Ian. So the last of our 4 products is the Thiaflex 555. The Thiaflex name is quite a historic one with Fosroc, what with the Thiaflex 600 being around for so long. The 555 is a 2-part polysulfide sealant, and it comes on, as I say, on the back of a long respected Thiaflex 600 name. Some of you old enough on the call may remember the old days of NitroSeal that Fosroc used to do, and the 888 and 777 were products that were used and launched primarily for the airport industry. 555 has come along really to take that mantle and maybe push it on even further. One of the critical tests when developing a fast cure sealant for the industry is the hydrolysis test, the EN 14188-2. Now, one of the critical parts of this test is that the 555 that you can see in the top left-hand corner there is subjected to 70 degrees and 100% humidity for 2 weeks. So for 14 days, the product is subjected to those elements. And this is to try and recreate the reality of hot weather, cold weather, hydrolysis movement in a long period of time. You can also see that there was a 0 drop in shore hardness. The shore hardness of 555 would tend to be about 10, 20 degrees. I won't mention the competitor name that's used in the bottom of that picture, but following that test, you can see that the 555 remains in its permanent state, its sealant state, if you like, whereas the product in the bottom picture there has actually reverted back to its former self. It's actually reverted back to almost as it's applied within the joint. So, some of the areas that the product can be used, again, developed certainly for the airports, and certainly a specialist applicator activity. Ian and myself have mentioned the word specialist applicator quite a lot, but we do work in partnership with a number across the UK and Ireland. At the end of the day, products leaving our facility are okay until they get into the wrong hands. So we're very protective over that, and we also like to promote that to your clients and construction managers as well. So as you can see, the picture there of the product being applied, it's a two-part product. It's an A and a B, mixed 1-to-1, and then applied via the lance, as you can see there. Ideally, the joints should be 1 to 1.5 to 1, if that makes sense. So an example being sort of 25 to 20, 15 to 13. You can do a 1-to-1 joint, but depending on the application method, you just need to be mindful of your joint sizes, as you would for any joint industry. Sizes, as you can see, 400 litres, which is applied, as you can see on the left-hand side there. So just to give you, we were going to insert a video here, but we're mindful of the fact this is live anyway. We didn't want to add any more jeopardy, so we actually showed a picture. But what you can see here is this is a project at an RAF base in the UK. You can see the chap applying the material. What you can't see here is basically doing a slow Michael Jackson moonwalk as he's going backwards a couple of miles an hour in unity with the wagon that's driving forward. So you can see the scale and the speed in which the material can be applied. In terms of the cold weather tolerance, very important. Little point us launching a product that can be used at 30 degrees, and that's about it. In terms of operating temperatures, the product can work happily down to -20 and as high up to +70. So when you do get those open air fields, you do get a huge range of temperatures with concrete slabs. So something that the product has been developed to ensure it performs against. In terms of the versatility of the product, before I mention, and you can see the names of some of the areas that the product can be used, I think one of the important points is that, that rapid return, and to give you an idea of the return to service of 555, so just jumping back one slide here to our chap applying the material here, 20 degrees, half an hour, and then right the way down to 5 degrees, 90 minutes maximum. So that you can imagine the sort of the efficiency you can get through on this product in realistic European temperatures and further afield as well. So 5 degrees, you will have that fully cured, ready for service, not just touch, not just gel time, but actually ready for service, ready to be put back into full operation, be that on an airport, be that wherever it is, within 90 minutes in 5 degrees, and 20 degrees would give you just half an hour. So as mentioned, there's opportunities for warehousing with those sort of return to speed, hard standings, productions, car parks, podium decks. We actually completed a project in Ireland at a large office block with 555. Again, the benefit being the return to service. There was an issue in the office block, it needed fixing. Amongst those issues was the requirement for sealant to be redone. It wasn't applied correctly, it had to be redone, and 555 was chosen because, having applied it in the morning, the office facilities were back up and open by the afternoon. So, again, finally, let's look at our efficiency timeline, this time for Fireflex 555. So, the test point we've put on here is based on 3 litres per minute delivery, and working on a 15 by 15 joint. So again, our setup and preparation takes about an hour. In the 4-hour curing sealant, and again, a lot of our sealants would fall into this bracket, so it's not a knock at anyone else in the competition. You can see that we probably get through 800 metres worth of sealant work. And then by the time we've waited 4 hours for that curing period, we've cleaned up a bit. Yeah, we've done 800 metres in 6 hours. Okay, not bad, but yeah, we can go better. So let's look below. Same setup procedure, about an hour to get set up. We can then apply, based on that 15 by 15 mil joint, remember, we can then apply upwards of 3,000 linear metres in the same 6-hour period, with just a 1 hour based on about 15 degrees curing time, encompassing our cleanup. So 3,000 metres in 6 hours. So a huge uplift in terms of efficiency and work rate. Okay, so you've heard about the products, you've heard us witter on about their benefits and how good they are, etc., etc., but actually let's look at how they work in reality, because none of this is worth the slides they're written on without seeing some reality, without feeling this in the industry that you guys would live and breathe day in, day out. So I'll hand back over to Ian, who's just going to run us through 4 case studies affiliated with the 4 products that you've seen. Ian.
Thanks again, Tim. Okay, the first case study we're going to look at is an example of where Nitodec FS has been used. Now, in this case, you can see from the upper images here a bit of a sorry state. So we've got some masonettes which are in Burnley in Lancashire, and the existing walkway, which is frequently in use, even during the application time, was in a bit of a sorry state, as I said. So it was slabbed. There was a requirement for a waterproofing solution on it, but there was a lot of reluctance within the local authority to actually lift these slabs because of the knock-on effect it would have on the ability for residents to get in and out of the premises. So we made sure that we worked in conjunction with an applicator that we had a lot of respect for, and that we'd done a bit of training with the product on as well. So a company called RAM Services, they did the work on this project. First thing they did was they needed to stabilise the slabs and try and make sure that they had a nice clean surface, and any surface deviations, the pointing lines and things like that were actually filled in to make it as good and as flat and as stable as possible. But the beauty of Nitodec FS was that this whole system, and it was system 4 that they went for, so it was the all singing, all dancing system. The system went down in about an hour and a half per, for each of the 4 layers. So that's, the complete system down in an hour and a half is absolutely astonishing when it comes to the cure time. Now, they use the reinforcement here. It's a good example as to an area where you would use reinforcement. That reinforcement fleece was embedded in between the waterproof membrane layer. So again, a very, very quick return to service for the client and for the people that are using this structure. Okay, on to the next one, which is a good example of where Fosroc 250 has been used, but it's in an area that's out with highways. And in this case, it's on a train station, a platform at Williamwood Station, which is on the south side of Glasgow. The contractor that we're applying the product here is a company called Resin, who are a branch of the Fraser Bruce Group up in Scotland. Now, the brief was pretty straightforward. The last trains that ran through the station on the night came through about midnight. And the first trains that were in use were about 6:30 in the morning. So there was they had about 6 hours of possession of this track in order to try and get the repairs done. So that's 6 hours to get all the prep work done that you can see in the top left-hand image there, get a shutter up, get the Fosroc 250 into place, let it cure 2 hours, and then strike that shutter and get the platform open again in the morning. Completed. Whole thing was done. The people getting on the train at 6:20 the next morning would probably have no idea that 3 hours previous there was no mortar in place there, to be honest. So yeah, it's a really good case in point as to where Fosroc 250 has really come into its own. The next one we're going to look at is an example of where Renderock DSR, the dry spray rapid, was used. So this is Queen's Quay in Clydebank in Scotland. The Queen's Quay's got a good bit of history about it. It's where the Lusitania, it's where Queen Elizabeth, the ship, not the person, were put into the sea. The QE2 also was launched at this exact point. Now, there's a lot of regeneration going on in this area at the moment, and there was a lot of need for depleted concrete, concrete that was in a really, really sad state due to the marine environment, needing to be replaced and reinstated. So DSR was the perfect material to use in this kind of scenario. We linked up with Castle Group Scotland, who are CRA members, Concrete Repair Association members, and they know their dry spray concrete well. So they undertook the works there. The fact that it was rapid set came into its own in 2 different ways. It's a tidal area, so if you're placing concrete to that scale, if you're in a tidal zone, then that has a knock-on effect on how quickly you can actually. How much work you can get done in the setting time, if you like, So the fact that this is setting within 15 minutes and would allow a tidal wash to come over it, that speaks for itself. But the other beauty of having a material that is very fast curing is that if there are areas overhead or vertical areas that you're having to layer up because there's so much material needed to be reinstated, you can actually get your layers put on a lot quicker, because the first layer will essentially be tough enough after 15 minutes to then get a subsequent layer put on. So yeah, there's two factors really that come into the success in that type of project. Okay, the final one we're going to look at is Thiaflex 555. So this is Dublin Airport, and we did a lot of work on the taxiways and a lot of work on the runways themselves. But as Tim was alluding to earlier when we were looking at the efficiency timeline, the main difference here is really just the amount of work that you can get done in a typical night shift. You know, in that period, instead of getting maybe 800 meters, linear meters of joint work done, get the capability of getting, you know, a good 3, nearly 4 times that amount of application done, and that's, you know, just over the period of a night shift. So a lot of really good good points there when it comes to the efficiency of the material itself. Okay, I'm quickly going to hand on to Tim again, who's going to give us a bit of a summary of the products we've just covered.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So just a few of the headline sort of benefits of the systems that you've seen this morning. Just worth pointing out again that a lot of the documentation, the brochures, the data sheets, etc., are within your pack on your desktop. So feel free to download those, as well as ask any future questions as well. So we've moved through Nitec FS, Patchrock 250, the Renderock DSR, and the Fireflex 555. And let's just sort of sense check some of the key points of that. So 5 times the area possible to be covered, and trafficked the very next day when you compare that to a standard PU or epoxy, certainly in typical UK temperatures. We've looked at 4 times the square meterage possible with the Patchrock 250 compared to a standard micro or hand-applied concrete reinstatement. And again, it can take just 2 hours to have a resin coating, a highways approved waterproof system over the top. DSR, 12 times more productive than the hand placed standard step mortar, and again gaining that rapid return to service benefit as well. And then finally we looked at the Fireflex 555, which can do, as we mentioned, 3,000 linear meters in a night shift instead of the 800 meters that you traditionally get from a 4-hour cure sealant. That said, speed isn't everything, and one of the things we're very keen to promote alongside that is the environmental benefits of these products. It's all well and good firing materials out into the market that make things quicker, but if they're filling landfills just as quick as they're filling the sites, then it's not really anything to be too proud of. So each of these products has been developed with an eye on lowering the environmental footprint and not the project timings. For example, something like the Nitec FS, not only are they inert once cured, but unlike epoxies, you can in essence part mix material. So you're not having that dilemma where you're mixing half and putting half in the skip or wasting half. No, you can part mix, put the lid on and go again. It also benefits from the solvent-free technology. If you look at 555, well, just one calculation there underlines the importance of something like the 555 in use. Over 1,052 plastic 380mm cartridges instead of those 2 reusable drums. So a huge impact of plastic reduced by using 555. Crucially, we mentioned the conformation with EN 1418882, where the product won't degrade from hydrolysis, and therefore the risk of leaching into the environment, leaching into the area surround, is all but negated. And then finally, the Patchrock 250. One particular project that the Patchrock 250 was used on was on the Midland Links, and you can see our vehicles there parked up on Oldbury Viaduct. But the product itself is as fast. It can be supplied in 1-ton bags, we're also looking at the possibility of taking that into a silo. So again, we're limiting the plastic packaging. And then finally, red rot DSR, again, 1 ton bulk bags instead of those 25 kgs, but probably the most important out of all the 4 products is that rebound. For those of you that are aware of concrete repair, dry spray projects, I'm sure you've all seen the guy going along, brushing up all the waste onto a shovel, into a skip or somewhere to get rid of it. When you're getting a 5% maximum rebound, as opposed to the 30% rebound, it goes by way of itself. But that's a huge environmental, as well as a cost saving, and also crucially a time. It's a man that could be doing, or a man or a lady could be doing something far better than sweeping up rebound material that's going to end up in landfill more than that, you know. So, thank you. I hope you've all enjoyed this morning's presentation. I hope you're all still awake. I hope you've enjoyed the products that we've covered. Obviously, they are just 4 of our range. But as mentioned, we didn't want this just to be a sales pitch. We wanted this to highlight the advantages of turning schemes around quicker. And certainly in the current climate of COVID-19, when we are all asked to get back out there and do our jobs and get sites operating again, I hope some of what you see might be useful just to get you back on track for yourself and your project. So I'll hand back over to Stuart now. Stuart?
Thanks, Tim. Well, there's been a few questions coming in this morning, so some of which we've answered. If we've not answered any so far, don't worry, we'll get back to you by email later. But there have been some sort of on a recurring theme, so I thought it might just be useful to take a few minutes now to cover these off with Tim and Ian. There's been a couple of technical questions and a couple just sort of general questions. So I'll start with one of the more sort of general questions. Some people have been asking if the products that we've seen this morning are ones that can be used successfully by a regular contractor, or would a sort of specialist be recommended?
I'll take this one on, Tim. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So they're not. I wouldn't say they're for specialist applicators only. And if we take something like Nitadec FS, for example, we are very willing to sit down and go through the specifics of how to use this product correctly. You know, it's a product that, you know, our reputation's on the line if it gets into the wrong hands. So it's not exclusive to any particular contractor. However, we do have an approved contractor scheme to allow, you know, the safe and the efficient use of the product. But yeah, as I say, I would reinforce the fact that we are willing to sit down with any contractor and make sure that they are au fait with the use of PMMA systems or MMA systems. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I would say is that being FERFA members, you know, we're not going to train people to be resin floor contractors overnight. However, we because we have affiliations with FERFA, you know, the independent body that governs resin floors, absolutely, you know, we can certainly put them in contact with FERFA and they can give that broader knowledge of resin floor systems as such. Yeah.
Right, that's great. Thanks, Ian. And you touched on this earlier, Tim, but I mean, given the current circumstances that we find ourselves in, you know, the products we've spoken about this morning, are they readily available at the moment?
Yeah, so one of the things we've made sure through the current climate is that we have kept all operations operating. So whilst there is an element of furlough within the business, from a sales, commercial, technical and production point of view, it's very much business as normal, albeit with some safety and safe operating procedure changes as advised by government. But yes, in terms of the products that you've seen here today and much of what else we produce is available. We're open for collections and open for delivery still. And probably more importantly for the audience here as well, we're certainly open for meetings. We carry out a number of our site meetings now via Microsoft Teams. We operate a work from home procedure, so specs are still going out and quotes and whatnot. So yes, if there's a product required, then drop one of the guys a line and we'll come straight back. But as it stands, we've a good stocking, no problem.
No, that's good to know. some people have been asking with regard to Thioflex 555, they've been wondering if there's any restrictions on joint dimensions when you're using the product. Does the size of the joint have any effect on curing time? Is that something you can give us a bit more information on, Tim?
Yeah, I'll take this one, perhaps. And in essence, it doesn't have an impact, but one of the things I would say is something from joint size. You really wouldn't want to be going much less than the 10 by 10 size, and probably the other end of that 30 by 25 would be your maximum sort of requirement. If you put this into a practical point, it's often the sort of 3 metre by 3 metre or 10 metre by 10 metre bay sizes that you'd be using anyway, if you think about an aircraft, a runway, for example, or a taxi point. So again, working alongside us, we can give you some guide and advice on that. But in terms of curing times, no. But be very mindful what I mentioned about your width and your depth. Get the ratio correct. No point having a width of 10 mil and a depth of 3 or 4. You need to make sure that you're on the ball in terms of getting the ratios right. So yeah, 10 by 10 and 30 by 25 at the other end of that would be the kind of limits that we'd look at, I guess.
Right, that's great. And a question, this is probably one for Ian, I think, regarding the RenderUp DSR. A couple of people wondering if it's compatible with cathodic protection systems, and also, this is a twofer here, Ian, also one or two people wondering the kind of standard of finish that you can get with the product.
Right, okay, to cover off the first point, absolutely yes. It's compatible. It falls within a resistivity level where it would be compatible with any of the anode systems that are out there in the market at the moment. That's an absolute given, and it's currently being used in a lot of different projects across the UK in exactly those ways. On the second question, which is about finishing the product, I hope I don't ruin things here by going back, trying to go back in the presentation, but there's a graphic which should come up here, which shows where some of the trials have taken place. The one thing I would say is that because the rapid setting version of RenderUp DS goes off that much quicker, you can still get a finish on it, but you need to make sure that your nozzle man or your nozzle woman is actually coming on, doing the reinstatement, but you need somebody to close that surface off fairly quickly. I would say probably within 5-10 minutes to get a good finish on it. That window is a lot longer with something like RenderUp DS because it's not hitting that early strength just quite as quickly, So absolutely, you can get a very, very nice finish on it, as you can see in the bottom left-hand image there. It's just that you need to act a bit quicker with DSR than you do with the standard DS. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And using it with cathodic protection systems?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, there's absolutely no problem in using them with any anode systems that are out there. Yeah, absolutely.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And then just a final question, just probably a quick one. One or two people wondering, is it possible to use Fosroc 250 on vertical surfaces?
Yeah, I'll grab this one, perhaps, Ian, as I covered it off. Yes, so Fosroc 250 is very much designed for the horizontal, the floor base repair, if you like, the carriageway repair. Therefore, if you're looking at a vertical repair, you really want to be looking at a couple of options, actually. If it's highways related, then you need to ensure that it's a highways approved product. So something like the RenderUp LA60, which has the low resistivity that Ian's just been talking about, it's a micro concrete. You would shutter the area up. You would blast some water through to create that key, that primer, if you like, and then pour the RenderUp LA60 in, strike the shutter, and then be away. An example of RenderUp LA60 working would be the Albury Viaduct project that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Conversely, if you wanted to, there's an option for the dry spray that Ian's covered off. And also there is the option, of course, to go to the hand applied. So an R4, so a structural concrete repair, you could therefore use something like the RenderUp HB45 would be our R4 mortar. But yes, as good as Patchop 250 is, the limitations would be for a deck repair rather than a trowel finish vertically. You'd struggle to get the right sort of consistency. So yeah, its expertise is across the deck, and there's a handful of other products then that come into their own when it comes to vertical applications, Stuart.
Right, that's great. Thanks, Tim and Ian for answering those. Right, well, that concludes today's webinar. We hope that you found it enjoyable and informative. As I said before, the webinar will be available to view on demand. You can use the same link that you used to join today. And when you view it on demand, you'll have all the functionality of the console, so you can download resource material. The Q&A will still be active but not live. We'll get back to you by email, and you can use the links to your other webinars. And again, please feel free to share the link with any colleagues that you think would find the webinar helpful. So we look forward to seeing you soon at our next webinar. So from Tim, Ian and myself, I'd like to say thank you for joining us this morning, and see you soon. Okay, goodbye.